So hi everyone, this is Craig Zelzer from PCDN. Delighted to be with you here with another wonderful PCDN Career Impact Chat with Neeta Kolhatkar, who is an award-winning Indian journalist. If I read her bio, we'd be here the entire session, but she has won many awards, has been in the media journalism field for 30 years, in broadcast, print, and online. We met, I don't even remember how many years ago, at the Rotary Peace Fellowship, which is actually sponsoring this career chats, and it was wonderful many years ago in Thailand. She can talk about that. She has a very active YouTube channel called The Report Live, which we'll send out in the follow-up emails. She's given TEDx talks, teaches guest lectures, challenges the power structures that are unfair and unjust. So really works on media, both to inform, but also to, hopefully have a positive impact in the world. She's going to talk for 10 or 15 minutes and share some of her wisdom and insights from so many years of rich experience in journalism. And then, as with all sessions, we'll open it up for just open discussion, questions, and chat. And I see we have Wes from the US, Mohammed from Nigeria, Craig and Catalina from Colombia, Neeta from India, and usually other people come in. So again, I'll turn it over to you, Neeta. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom late at night.
Thank you, Craig. The night has just started. Thanks for this, such a lovely introduction. Basically, I started my career immediately. I joined the newspaper immediately after I graduated in Bachelor's in Art. And I took a break. I took a break after 2 years and I pursued my master's in social work, worked for a social advocacy organization, and then across various mediums. The 30 years journey that I have seen, I can tell you that initially the kind of equipment we use, that is obsolete. A lot of methods that we use are redundant, and most importantly, an ideology with which we entered this field that has got diluted. The whole idea of media is to make an impact and to change, to try and change. This is how we, maybe it was utopian, but that is what we, media was and we got into. 30 years, the media has changed, technology's changed. Today, it's very easy for one individual who's covering any incident or any protest or any event at that spot to communicate and inform, disseminate to the readers, viewers at a single moment on different platforms. And I think that's very, very important because this development is very good. You can live tweet, you go on Facebook Live, at the same time you take photos, videos, you can live tweet and then write a short piece and then keep all this information that you have collected talking to various agencies and people for your long read. Read. There is no substitute for reading in this field. Then get data, do research. It is important. Get a list of experts, which is very important. Who are the analysts? Who are the experts of that field of that subject, who you can use later in your story. Changes in the field are tremendous. We used to be protected. There was a trade union. There was a union. There was wage board. So the changes: higher salaries, lesser rights, no union, no protection, greater editorial interference, as I can see, fledgling space, dwindling space for free voice. And that is very, very important for youngsters who are coming into this field to note that. The changes have been tremendous. The challenges are there and there are opportunities in that. I think a growing geopolitics is what we are seeing. So what started as Corona, COVID-19 has become Chinese Corona. So then you label, you slot people and countries in different labels. There's judgments and there's a lot of false information surrounding. We are the fourth pillar. Media is very, very pertinent to a democracy, like the parliament, executive, judiciary, and the media. So the fundamental right of every citizen in democratic countries is that they get information from the primary source, which is the media. So any attack on the media, the readers should know, is an attack on themselves. And we're seeing a growing tendency of creating a distrust by these in power against the media persons. There's in the challenge that I'm talking of, there is increased attacks on media people, violence, otherwise to name them, call out to them, insult them in the press conferences, if they question the prime ministers and the presidents, and we are seeing that on a daily basis. Another challenge is complete disregard for science and scientific bent of mind. And this is not just restricted to America, it's in India and many countries, somehow to keep people confused, take them away from the larger picture, and that we are seeing. Increased attacks on ethnic communities, so be it blacks, be it Muslims, be it indigenous people. Uh, and interestingly, the members of the majority communities or the majority population is being made to feel insecure. Fear is being perpetuated. Now, this is being done very deliberately. There's a narrative. So, the huge challenge today is not to get co opted. Very easy to say, people will say, I know that. But I think that is a big challenge and there's an opportunity. Today there is an advantage, so I think the skills are that they should know how to write to the point, precise, clear, then to take at least basic photos that are not blur, and tells you in one look what is going on, and of course videos. Buy a smartphone, it's easy, it's all in one, because your internet is on it, your data plan is there. So it helps promptly at that moment. You are putting out information and the world is at your fingertips. So this is a huge advantage. And the challenges, of course, will be there, and so are the opportunities. I think basic grounding you need in one subject, and it doesn't have to be only journalism, it can be any. So I think what is important is we need to have a grounding in a particular subject. It can be environment, global warming, it can be politics, international relations, and so on. Craig, I think now we have a few participants, so we can.
I think just one question, we were talking before we started. Can you talk a little bit about the changing nature of professional opportunities? So are there actually stable jobs in journalism, or like, and would you encourage people, for people who want to work in media, do you encourage them to go to university to learn how, like, to learn technical skills? Like, what do you recommend as the career
Huge
path?
amount of laying off of journalists. There are outlets that are shutting down. There is no money. If there is money, that is being just very few options, but there are there. So there's online portals. There are opportunities where you can start your own YouTube channel. So you can do that. There are blogs. Then there are still outlets that will take you on a freelance basis, like what I am doing. Independently you contribute. There are opportunities where 2-3 together can come. Now there are radio opportunities in America and some other countries. There's online radio. There is you can write and send it out to various outlets, and they do take it. Do videos get a lot of hits, they get a lot of views, and they get a lot of appreciation. Also use social media, I would say. And podcasts, it's a very ignored sector.
I know.
Now we can do a live podcast where Craig is asking me questions, I am asking Craig questions, how is the PCDN going to help, and so on and so forth. And I think that will happen. So yes, you need to study, like I said, in a particular subject. If they do post-graduation in very renowned colleges, somehow that was the trend we saw. But you don't really need to do that. uh, a strong understanding of a particular subject is very important. How you communicate, how you write, how you show, and there is scope for citizen journalism also. So yes, COVID is brought in a new world, and we need to get used to it. And yes, you have to equip yourselves, and you have to move with the times.
Okay. So again, apologies for the Zoom bobbing. It's the first time it's ever happened. And the reason is I sent the link more broadly. And so I've adjusted all the settings. People cannot unmute in the chat box about kind of careers in media for social impact. If you have something specific about Neeta's work in South Asia. And if you do want to make a longer comment, raise your hand and we'll turn on your mic.
Taking notes here because you said a couple things that I want to highlight, and maybe if others want to chime in as well. But you talked about the labor changes in your field in journalism, and going from trade unions, from stable salaries to sort of the disappearance of the unions, the precarity of the salaries, and you also put in perspective sort of like the stuff that we often think that could happen only in the United States, like the departure from science and evidence-based facts, the confusion of the people. But hearing you from India, knowing it's actually a global problem. So sort of asking you to expand a little bit on the first part, the economics, and the word is the precarity in which maybe I'm thinking in Spanish now, since I live here in Colombia now, Spanish words get inside, but how the salaries and the prospects for journalists is changing. Is it due to the privatization of whoever owns the media, the concentration of power? And if you can expand a little bit of that, because certainly it's a global problem. And the second is if you can talk about the intersection of journalism and peace, or journalism and social change, which I imagine is even harder to develop a career in which you can actually, I don't know, I'm speculating, but is it even harder if you want to be a journalist that specializes in journalism for human rights, journalism for peace building, in terms of like what are the prospects in that intersection? And
Charity and social impact, human rights is actually together. So when I joined in the 90s, the reason I decided, I mean, I didn't know. We used to have pen friends, you remember, once upon a time. We wrote letters to strangers. So I had a Brazilian pen friend, and he reconnected with me on Facebook after 20 odd years. And he said, "Are you the same Neeta who in the 8th standard had said that you want to be a journalist? And I have been reading what all you have written, and I am impressed, and I think I'm so happy if you've taken up that." So we grew up in a country where the first thing in the morning you do is pick up the regional newspaper, not necessarily the English newspaper, and read what is there. It was compulsory when we were studying in school. We went to a British ICSE school, my sister and we had to write 100 lines from a leading newspaper without fail, and not just writing to improve your English, but also what is the gist of that story. That time, there were very clear right of the center, left of the center, or a center. Okay, it was very clear that this newspaper had this. We had wage board that I said, so you had less pay scales. You had there was no editor or owner of the company who could deny you your rightful leave, your holidays, and you could not be sacked at any women fancies that we are seeing today. You were protected, you had a right, you are protected by the wage board and by the policies that have evolved over a period of time. You have quite a defunct editors guild. We didn't have so many active associations, but these few laws were enough to protect you. and enough to deter the owners. Newspaper industry in India is controlled by advertisers. So space selling, that department controls. So the whole scam of good news started. It is the most ridiculous trend in this entire media is good news. I mean, if I can say my, then it is, that's what good news is. There's no good news, sorry people. If you want to read good news, there are other ways. You can't have something about charity running as your header when there are people dying because of starvation, malnutrition, lynchings and things like that. So you cannot compare this, you see. And that time a very important thing that prevailed was very less editorial interference. You could not have overnight things changing. So this was 96 when I was covering election campaign in Mumbai, and one of my colleagues and friend from a leading newspaper, I was on the national, I was on a agency that news agency that was aired on the national network, and she was working for the newspaper. We both had the story. I showed it that the leading candidate in South Mumbai was driven out of a Muslim dominated area. He was literally thrown out. They had brought tomatoes, onions, tube lights, and they were all prepared. Overnight, her story as it was changed and made positive. This couldn't have happened in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. With this change, what we saw is that the marketing department, the space selling department, getting more dominant, bringing more money, and obviously we were told that we have to prove ourselves. With that, slowly the wage board concept was made redundant and everyone went on a contract. You know, you lose the larger picture. That's where the media lost the larger picture. So I am not bribable, I can't be bought. Now, if you follow that, then these few zeros that one gets, and what have you lost as a result? So today, what we are seeing in the Indian media is actually a completely cheap B grade film, televised film on the national, on television, private channels. We are seeing complete control by certain individuals who are very, very powerful. So what Noam Chomsky spoke of, of manufacturing consent. So this is the way consent is being manufactured. This is growing problem in this country. So they don't want anybody criticizing them. They don't want anybody questioning them. They don't want anybody putting out facts. Why were the migrant laborers, not given any opportunity to go back before the lockdown in this country was announced in March, on the 22nd of March? They were given, individuals were given 4 hours. People lived in different states. So it's like you're living in Colombia and your house is in Venezuela. That is the distance for the migrant laborers who were in the major metropolises of India and had to go back to the hinterlands. They died of starvation on the way. They were willing to take that risk. They died walking because otherwise they would have died of hunger. They're bringing a national lockdown. Every activity of this country comes to a halt. Did they not know that one's daily supplement? This would have been made series from day one. It was trying, there was a kind of a way to not highlight it. When it got out of hand, it became national news. Just 2 days ago, the parliament of my country, the leaders of my country said they do not have any account of the number of migrants, the exodus who went out, number who have died, and number who have died of what reasons. Do you know how blasphemous that is? I think we failed as a social impact. For peace, everything we put in that perspective, it comes there. when it got privatized, it's become like a conglomerate of certain people who are owning these media outlets. Those that are not, they are being stifled. So their funds, so that there'll be ED raids on them. There's questioning, income tax raids on the proprietors, on the stakeholders. If their foreign funds are coming, they are being told that why are you doing this? When I finished the peace course, I came back as a peace scholar. I did some very good stories. One of them was on the children of Naxal. See, anyone who is trying to question the government is trying to equip the people, then you're called an urban Naxal. There's a huge another I won't even say conspiracy, but what we are seeing a precedence is, if you question, you write. There are very stifling legal sections being imposed, like sedition. So the section of sedition is imposed. Then UAPA, so they're journalists from Kashmir. So photographers who won the World Press Award, they were seen as anti-national. So immediately, if you question, you don't fall in the rhetoric. You don't fall in that whole narrative that it is intense nationalism. And you question, why am I staying in this country if my country is being disintegrated to something like this? Then you're being called names publicly. You can get arrested. Now, I don't think this is only in India. If you see what's happening globally, in Belarus, what they did to the foreign journalists, in China, because of the geopolitics, which I mentioned at the beginning, the foreign correspondents were deported. At least Australian government stood by their people. I am not so confident what will happen to my friends, two of them who are in China, and if they were to get deported. So these things are happening. And when we are, when for those little zeros that my seniors have gone for, we have diluted all this, and we have allowed ourselves to become very vulnerable.
Thank you so much. So we have a couple of questions that have come in. So Wes from DC has a question, so we're going to ask him to turn on his video. And then we have a question from Larissa in Brazil. So Wes, go ahead.
Hey there, Neeta. Hey there, everyone. Thank you so much. Am I coming in clearly?
Yes, yes, very much.
Perfect. This is a little bit of kind of a question, also a comment. Thank you for kind of fleshing out your concepts and ideas from kind of from the Indian perspective at the moment. So for me, I'm not incredibly familiar with journalism overall, but from what I've understood, it seemed like journalism has had more writ large, has had some existential crises. Over probably 10 or so years ago, it was the idea of switching out of print media and the kind of loss of print media overall. And then switching, of course, to digital. And then I would say more recently, it's been kind of this creation of what is actual fact, right? The questionization of fact and this sort of thing, and the manipulation of authoritarianism and corporations utilizing, you can now digitally alter people to be saying different things, right? So what is fact and what is fiction? So one of the things I've always been interested in is kind of localizing media, making journalism more focused on the community writ large, especially when you have more kind of localized civic engagement. We often say in the States anyway, that your vote matters much less for the White House and much more for your community. So utilizing journalism to really be something to bring more transparency and accountability in your local community and just better connections and networking. But the issue there is also that everyone has a voice then, right? And it just kind of drowns out. And of course, financially, when I served abroad a number of times, I would connect with the local journalists, and often they were doing that completely out of pocket. So I was kind of curious, it's kind of a question or comment. Do you see the future of media maybe being more of that like local reporting, local journalism, and tackling those problems? How do you see the way in which this sort of attack on accuracy and information that's happening globally could impact that? And then also, what could individuals in sort of the peace building field do to really build bridges with journalists and kind of like bring out, to utilize journalists as our allies, right? As part of our team and making our communities building more positive peace, making our communities more transparent, more accountable, more open, more connected, building that social capital and that social network. So as I said, sorry, not quite a question. There's a couple thoughts and ideas going on in there. I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that overall, both on an Indian perspective and also more globally.
So Wesley, we all have, thank you for your comment and your little points you raised. So we have grown up hearing think global, act local. And the focus should be local, but you should learn to link. So the one integral point of journalism and media is to link. So if something happens in the world, like just now, just a while ago, when I get the New York Times reader pointers, newsletters in my email box, I just got that the president has pulled up the Center for Vaccination and that CDR or something. Yeah. So I think that's where at that time that we pick up from our point of view in India, what's the status of vaccination here, and what's the status of cases here for COVID, and what is the condition of the availability of medical options in Mumbai. And I think that's how we can link. So coming to that point, the problem right now is obviously with the number of turnover that we are seeing, laying off we are seeing, and complete dwindling of pages. And there's no choice. If you're if it's even if it is a national newspaper conglomerate, or it is one newspaper, if it is being published out of Mumbai, they will have to give more pages to Mumbai. But now, with so many jobs going, with so many pages dwindling, where is going to be the focus? Now, that's a big question. What do you focus on? And what is the, how do you weigh what is more important? Okay. If especially there is something that is nationally important. Right now, what is happening in my country, they don't want to focus on the corona, its impact, the shortcomings, the failings. And there's a complete new narrative because there are going to be elections in another state, which is from Bihar. There was one actor, Indian big name, intelligent man, who committed suicide. And from then, the media that they can control and they can influence, they have tried to ensure that that particular topic is on the top of your minds, is being discussed on the streets of every city, and not why are the numbers increasing, why are enough tests not being done, why is corona not being contained, why is it that the heads of the states are not able to do that, and why is the head of my country not even addressing this issue? Why is it that on the parliament floor it goes that we do not have any data and any documentation of the people who have helped to build our infrastructure, the labor class, the migrant workers, and how they died, why they died. Why? This is a big question. Why is this not the agenda on the national networks or on all the media, So this is, now peace, when we talk of peace building, I think we need to understand if there's going to be such extreme inequality and certain ethnic groups that I said are not getting representation, there's going to be no peace. There is going to be no peace. And I think we need to understand that. But peace from my point of view, is it the same as the peace from the head of the state point of view, from the prime minister or the president of that country's point of view? They see us as disruptors. Then they will say that you are an exile or you're anti-national, and there we go, we get all these labels. Or when the Washington Post senior journalist Woodward had the telephonic conversation of the president of the United States of America, and he said that across the administration, across the board, everyone wanted to downplay that the impact of COVID. You saw how he was called. And then the CBC reporter, journalist, questioned the president, and he was pointedly told that this is not the language, this is disparaging, how can you talk like that? What is the focus? What is the issue? And this is what we are seeing across the globe happening. So you name call, you distort the information, you change the narrative and get onto something else. And that's what, so what stays in the minds of the people? Oh, how can you question your president like this? The question should be, why has the information been hidden? Why did so many people die in my country? Why were the migrant laborers not given time to go? Do you see? This is a precedence that is occurring everywhere.
So this comes from Larissa in Brazil. So the question is, how did you manage to become such a big figure in journalism, considering that you're a woman in an emerging country? And like, what challenges have you faced as a woman, as a female journalist? And what would be your recommendations for other women in emerging countries or economies, or whatever the term you want to use, to kind of build a career? And how do you deal with discrimination, harassment, and the many structural and cultural challenges?
Thank you, Larissa. A very important question. I live in a patriarchal society. My name in my society will be considered as upper caste, and I'm a woman. But I don't fall in either of the two brackets. If you do ask about me, they will tell you, oh, stay away from her. She's aggressive and she's a bitch. And I'm very happy because interestingly, if I have to hear that I am friendly, I think there are many connotations to that. Okay. And I don't want to be friendly because journalism is not, or any profession, you don't join to make friends. It is cutthroat competition. I will go for my story. Do I kill a person for the story? I don't know. If you interfere in my life, you just cross the line. And I think you got to take that, you know, as I think a living in your existence, that you don't cross this line. Uh, so for that, then there is no compromise. And I am thick-skinned. That's one very basic quality that you need in journalism, I would say. I am very curious. If someone says no, I don't take a no for an answer. So then I would say that there's something you're hiding, or there is something there. So if someone tells me, get out from here, you will not get anything here, I will stay put. I will be like a mule and I'll stay put there. So I might just have Fevicol glue stuck to my backside and I will not move from there. So you got to have these basic skills in your life, you know, that there's no rocket science that you need. You got to be sharp. The one thing that I learned from my father is, in a split of a second, when you enter a space, my father was a photographer, professional photographer. And that was like one skill he told me at a very young age. Split of a second, look around you, and you should be able to gather what you feel there, what you can see instinctively. So your instinct, you should be smelling news. And if you don't know that, you need to develop that, because that's a really huge skill that one would need. It was not easy. I have always been a little earlier to my time. So when I joined television, it was in the 90s, and I had to literally drag the political leaders out, bring them, and tell them what to speak on the camera and how to speak. And this is what I have done. So I'm very happy because they then would take time out, and they remember that even today, because I have seen them grow from what maybe he was a leader of opposition, today he's in the government, or they've seen me grow in my career. You have to build sources. They can be anybody. I mean, I've had even a local shopkeeper call and tell me, or I remember years ago that I was one of the first few to have a slot on the television network for the stock markets. I don't do business journalism, but I had that. And somebody who had interviewed in the National Stock Exchange was on his way home, had gone to we used to have phone booths in India at that time, 1 rupee phone booths. He's gone there and called me and told me that there has been a building collapse in his area. So this is how, or my college friend, she was at a leading station and a bridge had collapsed, and she called and there were pagers at that time, and it was so challenging because at that time the agencies and the police would not let us flash, shoot out, encounter, killing, bomb blast, bridge collapse. They used to say, no ma'am, we can't air this message, we can't send this message. So we had technology challenges earlier which were very different. uh, it is still a struggle. See, I know that it's easy. You have people saying, "Oh, you're a woman, so it's easy for you," But it's not always that every woman uses a femininity. And even if they did, we shouldn't be judging, because these rules have been set by men, and you are working in a very male-dominated sector. When I see the foreign channels, some dress like dolls and airline crew even today. And their European channels, I must say, especially the French channels, they are just normal. They are older people. They don't look like dolls. They don't dress like airline crew. And I think that is so very important, because you are presentable, and that's the basic. Because in India, we see this disparity. They are like out of shape male anchors. They are tearing out of your screen. They are like wide and obese, and that's okay. But I can't have so much fat on my cheeks, you see. That's how it is. Or how you dress. You should always have a scarf around you. There are too many shoulds for a woman journalist. The colors that I was told that I could not wear. I see these French channels and I'm like, wow, stripes, polka dots, colors. They wear everything. That's what it is. How you communicate, how you relay the story. What you have is more important than how you look. But I'm sure in Brazil, she might just face that problem.
Thank you so much, Neeta. So Catalina has a question.
Let's see if I can, am I doing things correctly? Okay, in the background is our son, homeschooling, because this is 2020, right? Let's not forget that. But Neeta, it's fascinating to hear, and Larissa's question was great, because I was just thinking, as soon as you said that people call you aggressive, but if you were male, you would have been perceived as assertive. But it was fascinating to hear your sort of journey as a female journalist, in how another idea is we watch PBS and YouTube. We don't have cable anymore because it's trash, just to be blunt. And so we watch things through YouTube, and PBS is a great source. And the anchor in PBS is a woman of a certain age, 60 plus, and I am very happy. She's super smart, and she's covering the elections right now. And it caught my eye the other day that it's just so fantastic not to have because there is candidates, female political candidates go through like the way they dress. It's a certain age, all of us past 40 something, are considered old, and women have to look a certain way. And I love her. I love watching her coverage of the US election, and she's like 60 plus, and it's awesome. But you have also painted us a very depressing and very real sort of situation of the state of affairs of journalism, in not only in India, but we can all relate in Colombia, in North America. Why do you keep doing what you're doing is my question. And what are there any avenues of opportunities that, because of the way things are changing, with what Wes was saying, with the digital media, are there any positive things that we should be paying attention to in journalism in the midst of these manufacturing of consensus, as you said, for the benefit of profit?
Thank you, Catalina. I don't know anything else. I don't want to know anything else. So time and again, I have people telling me, you know, you should change, you should change. Then you know what? I would be like the rest. And at the end of the night, I have to sleep. I have to face myself. So I'm sure even they sleep well, maybe with a couple of drinks and pills, but I don't want to do that. I I I want to be fearless. I will be. I want to have that right, and I want to have that edge over others. You know, it's a big kick. But I know how it is. You will see, if you see my CV, then I had one typical HR MBA person tell me, you know, you've not stuck to one place, because I want to grow. I'm a human being. I am not a robo. I am not mechanized to only do that. I can't be like this. My perspective is larger, and I would like to do that. Um, there are options. We have to explore them. So there's long form read. There are independent portals. There are in India we have a few like that. They face the music they are facing. They will have authorities calling them for questioning, coming and sitting in their offices, and then just say, okay, don't touch your computers. So there is a lot of deterrence. There's a lot of pressure tactics that are wielded, and I'm sure that's there everywhere. By and large, the last 5 plus 7 years, I mean nearly 7 years, I've stopped watching Indian television. I only watch 3 4 news channels that are free. I refuse to subscribe, because if I'm going to subscribe, then at least I want what I want to see. So I do get, I still like Al Jazeera a lot. I do like uh, 2 French channels. I get so much more information about reforestation, about simple things that they do, individuals, that somebody who just makes watches, and they're specialized uh, watches that he makes with his designer name, and there's a huge demand for his watches, who is based in Switzerland, in Japan, and how some of the watchmakers and designers have got together, and they are teaching watchmaking now. Wow, isn't that important? But I mean, when you have the biggest challenge of Apple watches and other, point is, within that field, I'm willing to evolve. So that's why get yourself equipped academically. That was one thing that my professor, Father Rudy, used to tell me when I was studying in my bachelor's. And he'd said that, you know, whatever you do, equip yourself. So even if they're short courses, one should do that. So when I went for the peace studies, I came back. It was depressing. It's depressing that you come back here, and where do you see, easy to be in the capital of my country and then be sent, because you are a protege or a blue-eyed person or a celebrity anchor, to be sent to a war zone. I don't have to go to a war zone to learn about conflict. There are conflicts here. So like the children of Naxals, uh, you know, to be, just the other day I was sharing with my friend, and she said her husband has spent more number of years in jail than with her and their son, just because he's called a Maoist. Do you know, his entire life, if a majority tenure of his life has been spent in the jail, and more than a family person, I think so. There's stories in your ordinary life you have to explore. It's just how you connect it to the global subjects and themes, and that is what we should be doing constantly. And like, then, you know, the main thing, we lost the fun when you're in the career. I always wanted to remain a reporter, and I was seen as unsuccessful because, oh, you're not going in the corporate ladder, so you are not an editor. You don't have those designations. Any Tom, Dick and Harry is now an editor with 2 years experience. If you go online, these are the job requirements on LinkedIn for that matter. We started this to tell the stories around us, which are local. So what Wesley had asked, that's what we did that. So and one of our videos is viral, and you laugh if I tell you what that video is. It's an innovative knife. That man sits in a monotonous commentary every day of his life. He sits there, and every day of his life, he only does one thing: is use that knife, narrate in a monotonous manner, and make some beautiful patterns of vegetables. It's challenge to exist, to survive. But that's so fascinating, I can't tell you. And that is what now media has come to. So we have to learn to explore in the ordinary. Sorry, Craig, you were saying something.
No, it's wonderful. Your language is so poetic and powerful. So I hope you have you written any books? I know you do a lot of writing, but have you written anything like a book?
Yes, but which book? I keep reading.
No. Have you written a book about your?
Written?
Yes.
I don't know how to write a book. Thank you, Craig. I have had people asking me that. I don't know how to write a book.
Well, if you want to talk about it, but so one question is, in India, because you teach and guest lecture, like what are you advising younger people, journalism students, like how in the world to make enough money, but also not give up your ethics? That's one question. And then the second question is, what are you most excited about in innovation in journalism? You know, so for example, I put in the chat box, like I support The Correspondent, you know, which came out of the Netherlands, like an interesting global experiment of crowdsourcing funding for independent journalism. You know, there's Solutions Journalism, which is not, it's a wonderful global network of analyzing problems. So it's not good news. It's just like analyzing problems to see what actually could work. So like, what are you most excited about that is taking place in India or anywhere? You know, and I'll just say we agree, like we actually find Deutsche World has a lot of great news too. You know, Deutsche, so it's often the publicly supported international broadcasting channels often have the best news that's not politicized. Obviously, Voice of America is destroyed, but you know, Deutsche World, Al Jazeera, sometimes BBC. But what are you advising younger journalists, and what are you most excited about in terms of like has the potential to be sustainable of good journalism?
And what's the first thing you asked? Sorry.
What are you advising younger students who are studying journalism in India that you interact with? How to build?
Money and Okay. Sorry. I am the last person who can advise anybody for money. That's something I need to take advice for, to be very honest. I just don't know. I've never managed that. I can speak of ethics, and I can speak of being undeterred, and I can say that how you can be non-diplomatic, because I am not. I do tell people upholding ethics and values in journalism is uncompromisable. So that is one thing you have to. You know, the day you compromise, remember, then you are making yourself publicly vulnerable. I'm not saying that we are not vulnerable today, but I don't get deterred. I have had trolls, abuses, and I've had a sexual violence threat online being given to me. But I tell you, that's okay. I mean, it's okay means it's not okay. This is being done to keep me scared, but fear is not in my dictionary. Then I don't have to worry if somebody coming on my door and saying, okay, show us your, because I pay my taxes, you have to be, just follow the law. And I think that is more important. How do they make money? Can we make money now in journalism? Because people are getting, those who've not lost their jobs have been asked to take pay cuts. How long will these pay cuts remain? We don't know. When I was in Bangkok, that was, I think, 2009, I think, Craig, right? The first, when the inflation hit, I was in Bangkok when I was told that you better come fast. We had to take pay cuts, and you better come fast because they are sacking people. Has the story changed today? I don't know, because I walked out of my last job due to the toxic environment. I was told that you can't take a no for an answer is not what it should be, and I don't think that I will be any different. The second part of yours is what excites me.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these new things. So there's crowdfunding, or there are independent media where I contribute to. Yeah, I read online a lot. So there's a lot of information and articles, very sensible ones that you get from all these foreign medias. If there are some links you think I should be following, do send me. Um, this time, the lockdown time has been very useful, that apart from seeing Netflix, that you can read and you can see videos of stories of world around you. So I think that is important. There's so much happening in Turkey, in Iran, in Iraq. There's so much happening around this world where women are doing like the Mariam, I forget her surname, in Italy. I mean, in Turkey, she had escaped there, and how they caught her recently, and the Turkey's bar bench and the advocates fought for her, and she has been declared a refugee now. And the way they did it, it was so interesting. I thought that was very, very important, So these stories from the Instagram, and this, see, people are putting up black and white photos, not realizing the route from where this has come up. And that was a story from Turkey. And that is about the fight of the woman and her fight for justice.
Your very powerful experience, your voice, your wisdom, and keeping up the fight for accurate justice and information, which unfortunately, if we think back when the internet first came around, the age of endless information, we thought it was going to be democratizing access to everything and a much better world. And obviously the internet is increasingly being used for not good things, but we do have wonderful tools like Zoom to do this.
Yes.
So we will be in touch.
No, I just wanted, this conversation was great, not only because it put us in context. Sometimes, I mean, PCDN is a global community, and we do have members every week that join us from most continents. But all of us that have lived or are connected to the US have seen in firsthand the deterioration of our democracy, especially in the last 3.5 years, and are very closely watching the election. But what it was so fascinating to hear from you, Neeta, was that, it's not just Donald Trump or one individual. It's a global trend that we're seeing that is absolutely worrying. That we're not an expert on India, but we know that your beautiful, democratic, huge, humongous, biggest democracy on the planet is also going on very dangerous territory at the moment. Colombia as well, with, we've had over 40 massacres.
Yes.
And we're kind of seeing the return of the worst years of our conflict. And this is after signing the peace agreement. So it's very concerning. It's not only US, but it's global. And I mean, at the end of the day, what is PCDN if it's not a very, very small media outlet where we can continue to sort of connect with each other and keep learning from each other? And so for me today, personally, Neeta, it's wonderful just not to learn from you, but also to learn from a female journalist who is fierce, as you said. And it's also a great reflection for all of us social change professionals who are from the global South, who are female, and who need to hear from others in order to continue to be inspired, because 2020 is just like, it's hit us so many times that you're a great source of inspiration. I just wanted to say thank you.